Hello, everyone. She didn't walk the runway. She glided, chin high, hips swinging, eyes burning with intensity that made editors gasp and designers stare. Yasmeen Ghauri didn't just enter the fashion world, she invaded it. And for a moment, it didn't know what to do with her. Born to a Pakistani father and a German mother, Yasmeen entered an industry dominated by Eurocentric beauty and shattered the mold with one walk. Her presence was hypnotic, her features sharp, her skin golden, her energy unapologetically sensual. She wasn't trying to fit in. She made the runway bend around her. But behind the power was conflict. She had been raised in a strict Muslim household. Modeling wasn't just frowned upon, it was forbidden. When her father found out she had entered the industry, he disowned her. Her community turned its back. But Yasmeen walked forward, shoulders back, eyes forward, defiant. Not because she wanted to be a star, but because she refused to be invisible. In the 1990s, she became the first major South Asian supermodel, the face of Versace, the muse of Gianni himself. But with every campaign, every catwalk, she carried both the weight of a culture she defied and the power of one she reshaped. This is not a story of easy fame. This is the story of a woman who broke barriers with her hips, her walk, her silence, and left the industry breathless. Yasmeen Ghauri was born in 1971 in Montreal, Canada, a child of contrast from the very beginning. Her father was a devout Pakistani Muslim, her mother a free-spirited German. At home, she wore long dresses, spoke softly, and followed the rules of Islam. Outside, in the multicultural sprawl of Montreal, she saw a different rhythm: Western music, loose hair, and young girls who moved through the world freely. Yasmeen stood at the tense intersection of two identities and never fully belonged to either. She was quiet as a child, observant, not shy but strategic. Her beauty made her noticeable: early olive skin, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that lingered too long. But in her father's eyes, beauty was something to be hidden, not celebrated. Modeling? That was not just off limits, it was unthinkable. School was no refuge. Her mixed background made her the target of constant whispers. She wasn't white enough for the popular kids, and she was too Western for the immigrant community. Even her teachers sometimes looked at her like a puzzle they couldn't solve. Yasmeen learned to watch, to stay still, to let the storm swirl while she stayed centered. But beneath that calm exterior, something was brewing. She loved to dance. She loved movement. And she loved mirrors, not out of vanity, but out of curiosity. There was something in the way she held herself, even as a teenager, that hinted at power. Her body told stories she wasn't allowed to say out loud. When she was 17, she was discovered while working at a McDonald's in Montreal. A scout saw her and didn't hesitate. But when she told her family, it shattered everything. Her father saw it as betrayal. Her community called her a disgrace. Yasmeen didn't fight back. She just packed her silence, her beauty, and her ambition and left. That choice would cost her the comfort of home, but it would give her something far more rare: the right to be fully seen. It wasn't in Paris. It wasn't at a fashion school. It wasn't even at a casting. Yasmeen Ghauri's journey into modeling began under the fluorescent lights of a McDonald's in Montreal. She was 17, working part-time, wearing a visor and a red polyester uniform. She had no agent, no portfolio, and no intention of becoming a model. But one afternoon, as she moved through the restaurant with her usual quiet poise, a Montreal hairdresser named Edward Zakaria walked in. He saw her, truly saw her, and within minutes, he knew this wasn't just beauty. This was presence. He approached her gently, cautiously, aware of the cultural context. But Yasmeen didn't hesitate. maybe she had already been waiting for something or someone to say she could be more than what her world allowed. She accepted his offer. That moment would change everything. Her first photo shoots were awkward, not because she wasn't photogenic, she was hypnotic, but because she wasn't used to being looked at with celebration. Her entire life, she had been told to lower her gaze, to blend in, to stay small. Now, photographers were asking her to command the frame, to own the space. It was terrifying and thrilling. She began working in Toronto and Montreal, where her exotic beauty confused clients used to conventional looks. She wasn't a commercial blonde. She wasn't a blue-eyed ingenue. She was dark, angular, and intense. Some called her too ethnic. Others said she was too sensual. But the visionary few saw gold. Soon, word spread to New York, and in the early 1990s, Yasmeen arrived. New faces came and went in the industry, but Yasmeen didn't arrive as a trend. She arrived like a warning. Designers couldn't look away. Gianni Versace booked her almost instantly. Chanel followed, then Jill Sander, then Christian Dior. By 1991, she was no longer the girl from McDonald's. She was the girl who made silence look like power. She hadn't planned any of it. But when fashion opened the door, Yasmeen didn't just walk through it, she claimed the room. By the early 1990s, Yasmeen Ghauri had become an unstoppable force on the runway. Her walk was different low hips, long strides, an unmistakable sway that made every designer take note. She wasn't just modeling the clothes, she was the show. Gianni Versace adored her. He called her the embodiment of female power, sensual, confident, and untouchable. Karl Lagerfeld booked her for Chanel, where she brought a new kind of intensity to the house's classic elegance. Even Helena Christensen once admitted, when Yasmeen walked, the rest of us just tried to keep up. Her face was everywhere. Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar. She graced the covers not just once, but repeatedly. Her campaigns for Victoria's Secret, Anne Klein, and Hermès made her an international star. Yet while other supermodels played into the glitz of celebrity culture, Yasmeen stayed focused. No red carpets, no gossip, no headlines unless they were about the work. What set her apart wasn't just her background, but her energy. On the catwalk, she radiated something raw, controlled, but primal. Her beauty wasn't fragile, it was fierce. She didn't need to smile to be magnetic. Her power came from stillness, precision, and presence. One of her most iconic moments came in 1991 during a Versace show in Milan. Wearing a sheer beaded gown, she walked slowly, deliberately, as if the air around her moved at her command. The crowd didn't applaud. They held their breath. She wasn't just walking, she was declaring. That runway became legend. That walk became history. For many young women watching, Yasmeen was a revelation. She looked like them. Brown skin, dark eyes, hair that curled when the lights hit it right. In her, they saw possibility proof that beauty didn't have to be white, blonde, or soft-spoken. But for Yasmeen, it was never about fame. It was about freedom. The freedom to take up space, to be sensual without apology, to be seen without compromise. And in an era ruled by voices and noise, she proved something radical. Sometimes, the loudest message comes from the woman who says nothing at all. Yasmeen Ghauri was more than a face. She was a disruption, a contradiction that the fashion world couldn't tame. In an industry obsessed with conformity, even among the unconventional, she refused to play along. Her look was undeniably seductive, but she never performed for the male gaze. Her poses were bold, her stare unblinking, but it came from somewhere deeper. Not desire, but defiance. Not compliance, but command. She had been raised with strict expectations, modesty, obedience, silence. But on the runway, she shattered those rules with every step. In doing so, she confronted not just the Western fashion world, but her own roots. For a woman of South Asian descent to be so openly sensual was, for many, an act of rebellion. And Yasmeen knew that. She once said in an interview, "I wasn't trying to be provocative. I was just finally being myself." She turned down shoots that felt demeaning. She challenged stylists who tried to whitewash her features. She kept her voice calm but firm in an industry that wanted volume over substance. While others molded themselves to fit brands, Yasmeen made brands mold to her. And when people tried to box her in too ethnic, too bold, too mysterious, she stepped outside the frame. Her refusal to conform made her a magnet for photographers who craved truth over trend. She worked with Stephen Maisel, Patrick de Marchelier, and Peter Lindbergh, not because she chased exposure, but because they saw in her a rare kind of integrity. She broke another major rule, too. She walked away when the world wanted more. In 1997, at the height of her fame, she retired from modeling, no drama, no fall from grace, just a quiet decision to live life on her terms. She got married, became a mother, disappeared from the cameras with the same control she once wielded under their flash. That choice, in many ways, was her most radical act, because Yasmeen Ghauri didn't just challenge what beauty looked like, she challenged what beauty was allowed to be. And in doing so, she gave women permission to be powerful, sensual, and sacred all at once. In 1997, Yasmeen Ghauri stepped off the runway for the last time. No grand farewell, no magazine cover announcing her retirement, no final walk dripping in symbolism. She simply stopped. At the peak of her power, she vanished. The fashion world was stunned. Why would a woman so powerful, so desired, so unstoppable leave when she still had everything? But for Yasmeen, it had never been about staying. It had always been about choice. She had spent a decade defying expectations. As a South Asian woman, she broke barriers most didn't even see. She conquered campaigns, covers, and catwalks that were never built for her. And yet, the industry still demanded more visibility, more skin, more access. Yasmeen knew the cost, so she left. No rehab, no scandal, no tragedy, just stillness. Over the years, she reappeared now and then, once in a quiet interview, another time in a rare editorial. But she never tried to reclaim the throne. She had outgrown the crown. Some critics said she disappeared too soon. Others whispered she could have been even bigger. But that's the thing, they still think of her in terms of what the industry wanted from her. Yasmeen didn't leave because she had nothing left to give. She left because she finally understood her worth wasn't tied to how often she was seen. And in an industry that glorifies burnout, her decision to vanish with grace was revolutionary. No breakdown, no spectacle, just a woman choosing peace over performance. Maybe that was the boldest runway she ever walked, the one that led away from it all. Yasmeen Ghauri didn't burn bright and fade. She glowed steadily, then turned the light off herself. That's the kind of control few in fashion ever hold. Her legacy isn't splashed across tabloids. It lives in the quiet revolution she sparked. As the first South Asian woman to dominate high fashion, she broke a ceiling most didn't know existed. And she did it without apology. Designers still cite her as the muse who made sensuality sacred. Models of color still look to her as proof that elegance doesn't need to scream. And her walk slow, hypnotic, defiant remains unmatched. She didn't just open doors, she left them wide open. For every girl who was told she was too dark, too bold, too different, Yasmeen was the answer. And maybe that's the most powerful legacy of all. Not a name shouted, but a presence remembered. Not a story finished, but a question left behind. What if walking away was the most iconic move of all?